Professor Emeritus at Harvard Law School and the author of Get Trump, Alan Dershowitz. Professor Dershowitz, great to have you here on this Sunday. Are you surprised by the ruling and how big a victory this is for the former president?
Well, first, a blessed Easter to everybody who celebrates Easter. And I think this is a big victory because I think it signifies that the court's going to reduce the fine, as they have to, because it's unconstitutional. The Eighth Amendment prohibits excessive fines. This fine is excessive by every possible standard. There were no damages. There was no harm. The judge made up the number out of whole cloth. It reflected no reality. And I think the appellate courts will reduce it, and they're sending a signal, basically saying we're going to put a bond that probably more closely reflects what the ultimate judgment will be.
Now, after the former president's bond was reduced, New York Attorney General Leticia James released this statement. She said, quote, "Donald Trump is still facing accountability for his staggering fraud. The court has already found that he engaged in years of fraud to falsely inflate his net worth and unjustly enriched himself, his family, and his organization. The $464 million judgment plus interest against Donald Trump and the other defendants still stands," unquote. Professor Dershowitz, what do you make of that?
Well, we know that she was out to get Trump. My book title, Get Trump, is not original with me. It was her campaign pledge, and no elected prosecutor should ever ethically be allowed to campaign on the theory that she's going to get somebody, that she's going to target him. She said that before she even knew the evidence. And so this is part of a broad campaign to get Trump that applies as well to Jack Smith, to Fani Willis, and I'm not a Trump supporter politically, but I support the Constitution and make no distinction.
Now, given the hostility of New York courts to the former president, do you think he has a chance of winning this case on appeal?
I do. I think the appellate division sent a message. As you get higher and higher up, his chances of not being influenced by bias increase. Ultimately, the United States Supreme Court may have to take some of these cases. The New York City, the Manhattan case involving Bragg and the hush payments is the weakest criminal case I've ever seen in 60 years of practicing and teaching criminal law. I can't imagine that appellate court will uphold that, but, you know, it's New York, and particularly Manhattan, where the voting against Trump was overwhelming. And so we'll have to wait and see if justice is done. I know one thing, that justice does not permit a conviction in the Bragg case and does not permit a fine of almost $500 million in the Leticia James case. So I would hope the appellate courts would bring some justice to what is a get Trump.
Let's go further into that so-called hush money case that we're seeing in New York. A judge ruling this week that the case will now begin on April 15th. Now, the former president's attorneys, they're arguing that they need more time to review the 100,000 pages of documents recently released by federal prosecutors. Professor Dershowitz, is it possible Trump can get another extension for his team to go through all of the new documents?
It's unlikely. That's a hard point to raise on appeal. But remember, everybody's saying that Trump's lawyers are seeking delay. They got it backwards. It's the prosecutors who are seeking to push this case much more quickly than usual in order to get it decided at trial before the election. Jack Smith said as much. He said the public is entitled to a verdict. No, they're not. They're entitled to justice in a standard that applies to everybody. And normally, none of these cases would be tried so quickly. So I commend Trump's lawyers for trying to bring it back to a sense of normalcy, but they're accused of trying to delay it when the reality is that the other side is trying to expedite it and push it and put it on a fast track so there'll be a verdict of conviction in order to influence voters.
And there's so many legal cases going on against the former president. I want to get your thoughts on what's going in Fulton County, Georgia, the appeal effort there from the former president. And what do you think is going to happen at the end of the day with the district attorney, Fani Willis?
Well, if justice were to prevail, she would be put on trial for perjury, for conspiracy to commit perjury, for witness tampering, for obstruction of justice. What she did is far, far worse than anything she has accused the Trump people of doing. What can be worse than a prosecutor lying? And anybody who saw them and saw her testimony about when the affair began, and then saw the tower, cell phone evidence and the other evidence, knows that she was lying, and knows that she was almost certainly lying about paying back every penny. If you're a prosecutor and you know that you're not allowed to take money, if you pay back the money, you keep a record of it. You keep a ledger. You take a photograph. You have a deposit slip, a withdrawal slip, something. There's nothing. It's just her word, which is worthless, against the hard evidence. So I do think that the focus of the case ought to switch to her, but it's not going to, and we'll have a trial. And we'll see whether this judge follows the First Amendment. Much of what is charged in this prosecution is covered by the First Amendment: the right to protest the results of an election, the right to seek alternate electors. And so the difference between political speech on the one hand and turning something to a crime is a very important one to preserve, and I hope the courts will do so.
Alan Dershowitz, we always appreciate your insight. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.